Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to our Panopto tutorial session. I'm Jack Calora. I'm a McDougall graduate student fellow in the Office of Career Strategy. I'm joined by Brian Pase from the Porvu Center for Teacher and Learning. Brian's going to be walking us through how to use the Panopto platform to kind of record your 3-minute thesis presentation. We are recording this session, and so it will be up later on our website for you to review should you desire to do so. I'm also going to be monitoring the chat for any questions that you may have during the presentation. We'll also have some time at the end if you have any more specific questions you would like to ask. So Brian, whenever you're ready, feel free to get started.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. And thank you all for coming today. So as Jack mentioned, we're just going to be walking through the steps to get your presentation recorded and ready using the Panopto system. I will say, Jack mentioned that you can put questions in the chat. I'll also, at the end of the presentation, I'll put my email in the chat as well. And sort of after the session, if you run into any issues or have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. And so that being said, I will share my screen and start going through Panopto. So Panopto, just very briefly, is the video content management system at Yale. It's also used to power the lecture capture in classrooms, but it also has tools to record and easily edit video yourself. So you can access Media Library by going to medialibrary.yale.edu. And when you get to this web address, you'll see just this blue login button. And when you click that, it'll just take you through the CAS login. And so you'll probably see some material here depending on your course enrollment. So all your videos that are made available through the different media libraries of your courses, you'll see here. But what we're interested in terms of creating this video is creating it to what is called your My folder. And so your My folder is a folder within Panopto that only you have access to. And so that's a great place to put video, record video that you want to really only be available to yourself by nature. So you can think of it as kind of like a video sandbox for you to record or upload video. So you can find that on the left-hand course navigation here within Panopto. So I'll just click on My folder. And then depending on if you've sort of interacted with the Panopto system before, you may just see an empty folder, or I have a lot of stuff in here. So I just made a subfolder for the sake of our demo today, but you could also just record directly to your My folder. So we're going to go through the process of actually recording your video using Panopto's web-based recorder. And to get started doing that, you can just click this Create button up at the top. And then we'll select the Panopto Capture, and it says Record in Browser here. I will just briefly mention that you don't have to record your video using Panopto's browser-based capture. It is an easy way to do it, but if you prefer to record on another device, say a cell phone or a video camera, you can also just choose to upload media here, and you could just upload your recording. You do just want to make sure that recording is in landscape, not portrait, if you're recording it on, say, a phone, just to make sure it adheres to sort of the style guidelines for the 3-minute thesis videos. So I'll click into Panopto Capture here. And we'll see that just opens up another browser. And if you'll see a series of tabs across the top, it says audio, video, and screen and apps. And actually, I will just need to mute my camera in Zoom to make sure this works. And so if you do have multiple camera devices like I do, I have a document camera here that I use for demos. You can click on video here and choose the camera that you'd like to use. So I'll just choose to switch to my camera here. And then similarly, under audio, if you do have multiple audio devices, you can choose which one you'd like to use. And so we'll just ignore the screen and apps because we're going to go through how to add your slides to your presentation afterwards. So a couple other things in this gear icon in the lower right-hand corner. If we click on that, we see some recording options. I have a blurred out background here, but you know, that's not on by default, so you could have this off. These are just some of the options within here. So very basic, we can see that we're getting video. We see our video here, and we see that we're getting audio. I can see the sort of line moving across the bottom, so it just confirms that we're receiving audio. And to begin recording, you can just hit the record button. It by default gives you a 5-second countdown. And so then we see that we're recording the session here. So the sort of sandbox nature of your My folder, you can certainly do you know, any number of takes and upload them there. There is some basic editing options, but we won't necessarily get into those today. But you can just you know, always record additional takes if you are not happy with your previous ones. So I'll just hit stop here. And we see when we stop, in the upper left-hand corner, we see the upload progress of the video. And then when it's finished uploading to Panopto, you see that it says getting your video ready for editing. It's safe to close your browser window. Here we could name our file. And then we can also see what folder it's going to be uploaded to. So once we're sort of happy with the name of it, oh, and you can preview the video here as well. So you could play it. I'll mute it, but you can play it back here as well if you want to see what you just recorded. So once we're all set here and the video has finished uploading and we see that it's safe to close our browser window, we can just close this tab and return back to the folder that we recorded to. So I will just refresh this page. And we see here that this is the test that the recording that we just did, and it's currently processing. So I made some test recordings here just so we don't have to sit and sort of wait for this to finish processing. But we can see that, say, this is a 3-minute video here, and this is just the test video of me. So to get started with adding the slides, we can go into the editor for the video that we just either recorded or uploaded. And to do that, we just hover over the video here and select edit. And so that just brings us into the online editing section of the video. Sorry, I need to minimize my Zoom windows here. So to add a slide, it's very easy. On the left-hand menu here, we see a number of options, one of them being slides. And so if we click on that, we see the option to add a presentation. And so I'll click on that, and I just have a slide, a PowerPoint file here, and that PowerPoint file is just one slide. I believe that the recordings will only have one slide if it's still, if my memory serves me correctly. So once we've uploaded the presentation, we see the name of the presentation, and then we see the slides here. If you were doing this in a context where you had more than one slide, you would see all the different slides. But we can find the slide that we want to use, and in the upper right-hand corner, we have a plus button. And when we click that plus, it's going to add that slide to our presentation. So once we have the slide added to our presentation, we can click the apply button in the upper right-hand corner. And we see that it's applying the changes, and we get this notification that the changes have been applied to the video. Do we want to close the editor? And we can say, okay. So now that video just needs a little bit of time to process. And we can see, so this is one that I made with the slide. So we can see that now we have our video as well as the slide that accompanies our presentation. So when you upload a video or create a presentation within Panopto, it creates a number of different versions of the video. And the one that we're interested in is what Panopto refers to as the podcast version. And so this is a downloadable file that incorporates both your video and the slide presentation and mixes them into one video file. And so we have a site-wide default within Panopto that those files are going to get mixed together as a picture-in-picture. But this is not the layout that you're going to want for the 3-minute thesis. So just by way of example, if I hover over this video that only has the slides, that we had the slide added to, that's finished processing, we can see that the one that we just did says processing podcast. But on this sort of pre-made demo, we can go into the settings for this video. And what we're interested in is on this left-hand menu, the outputs section. And so when we click on outputs, we see this section called video podcast. And we see under type and quality that it says picture-in-picture, 720p, 30 frames per second. And so if we did download this right now and opened it up, we'd see that it's mixed those two video feeds together with the slides and us in picture-in-picture. So what we'll go through next is just how you can change this format to be the format that's being looked for to be uniform sort of across the 3-minute thesis videos. And it's really easy to do. What we can just do is under type, we can just change this to tile all streams. And then quality, generally the 1080p 30 frames per second will be sufficient. And as soon as we click apply here under the type and quality selections, we see this notification that we're going to change the podcast type, and this will cause the podcast to be temporarily unavailable while your changes are processed. And so we can just say okay to that and close this menu. And so now we see, again, this processing podcast, and it should just take a couple minutes for that to process. But for the sake of expediency, it just created a video copy where we've done this already. So this, if we go into the settings for this video, and again, go to outputs, we see the type is tile all streams, quality, the 1080p 30 frames per second, and we can choose to download the podcast here. And so clicking download podcast is just going to download an MP4 file of your video. And so when we open that, we see now what the finished product will look like, which is both your presentation, your video on the left here, and then your slides here on the right. And then that remains static throughout the recording. So it's this final MP4 video in this tile all streams format that can then get uploaded to, I'm not sure if y'all are using a box folder or what, to be your final submission for the 3-minute thesis videos.
Yes, it will be a box folder.
Okay, great.
And that information is on the 3MT submission page.
So that is just very briefly the steps that you would go through to either record your video within Panopto, upload the video. I'll just briefly show again, if we go to create, if we did have a video file that we just wanted to upload rather than use the Panopto Capture, again, we could select that upload media, and when you do that, you can either drag and drop a file to upload here, or you could just click on this to bring up a file browser for your computer and navigate to the video there. And then once that video is uploaded and processed, the process is the same as if you had recorded in Panopto to add the slide and change the configuration for the podcast. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen. I know that's kind of just like a very quick info dump, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, or if anything was unclear, sort of clarify the process.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I just wanted to emphasize to everyone that, for your 3MT presentation, it needs to be one static slide and in this tile all streams layout to try and keep everything consistent. I'm also putting a link to where you can find these rules for future reference. And if you have any questions, you can either unmute and ask them yourselves, or put them into the chat, and I'll read them out for everyone.
And I've also just put my email in the chat as well. So if you have any questions sort of after this presentation, you can reach out for assistance.
I had a quick question. Sorry, I came on a couple minutes late. So what you were demonstrating, Brian, was that from within the web browser, or was that from like the desktop-based browser of Panopto? So
that was from the web, the Panopto Capture, the browser-based recorder.
Okay.
I neglected to mention when I was sort of going through that in terms of browsers, it currently does not work with Safari. Safari kind of has its own architecture, so the web-based browser doesn't currently function there. But Chrome, Firefox, Edge, you shouldn't have any issue with using the recorder.
Hey, Brian, I'll jump in with a question.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacob. I'm the Senior Associate Director over at the Office of Career Strategy. Brian, when you were talking about recording directly in Panopto versus if you were to do it on your phone, is there a benefit doing one method versus the other?
It probably comes down to maybe how good of a webcam you have available to record on your computer. I would say generally cameras are probably better on mobile devices than webcams. I have a pretty decent 1080p webcam, so it would do a pretty decent job, but that certainly varies from person to person. So you may get a higher quality from a mobile device, in which case you could record on that and then just upload that file to Panopto.
Great. And then in regards to the file size for recording, if someone was to record on their phone, would you recommend like 1080p? Like if you had a 4K video, would that overload the Panopto system?
It won't overload the Panopto system, but I think Panopto would process it down to a 1080 source. So it is going to change the quality of that. So you can certainly upload a 4K video, but there's probably not going to be any sort of benefit in the long run to doing that versus like a 1080 one. I would say whatever, probably whatever natively your device does.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for walking us through that, Brian. We really appreciate it. And for everyone else interested in the 3MT, you can find a lot of resources for how to format your submission and refine it on the OCS website.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming. Again, feel free to reach out if you have sort of any technical questions or run into any problems with Panopto. We're happy to answer them.